What is going on, everyone? My name is Jemai McKinney, or you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. So, I've been doing the Juice Alert Sports Podcast for roughly about a year and a half. I've done some great things. I've had some film breakdowns on here. We've had some great moments. The channel and the podcast is really growing. I truly appreciate all of you guys that have supported me. But I am all about expanding my platform, and I'm all about improving the content for you guys. So I figured I want to start doing more collaborations this year. I want to bring in some more guests. I want to do more interviews. And today, we have made history. We have our first official interview on the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. I interview Mac Hereford in today's episode. If you don't know who Mac Hereford is, he's a wide receiver that used to play at the University of Alabama. He was coached by Nick Saban. He was teammates with Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts and Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs. All the Alabama wide receivers that you've seen drafted the last couple of years, defensive linemen, cornerbacks. He went to Alabama and played there for 3 years. So he's been a teammate with all these elite guys that have been drafted. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Alabama football, his experience of being a Division I athlete at the University of Alabama, him being coached by Nick Saban. What is Nick Saban like? You know, just overall the life of a student athlete. We're going to talk about what he's going to bring to Vanderbilt as he actually graduated from Alabama this past December. So he's going to play out his final year of eligibility at Vanderbilt for football. So we're going to talk about Vanderbilt football. We're just going to dive into so many things college football related, a little bit of NFL related stuff as well. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this. I was able to pick Mac Hereford's brain for a pretty long time. This podcast is going to be over an hour. I appreciate you, Mac Hereford, for coming on the show. You made history. You are officially the first ever guest on the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. I appreciate my guy Hutton Reed. I appreciate you for hooking me up with this interview. Be sure to follow him on Instagram and Twitter. For those of you guys that are going to be watching on YouTube, I will put those pictures of his social media on the screen. And without further ado, guys, this is the first official interview on the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. I bring you my interview with Mac Hereford, former Alabama wide receiver, now a wide receiver that's going to be playing his final year of college football at the University of Vanderbilt. Hope you guys enjoy and have a God bless day. Hello?
Hello, how we doing?
Hey, Mac, what's up, man? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Appreciate you for coming on the show, man. I really do appreciate it. I know we've been, kind of juggling our schedules, trying to figure out when you can come on the show and talk some, Alabama football, some Vanderbilt football. But hey, we got it done, and I appreciate you for coming on, man.
Yeah, it's been a little hectic. As you know, I just committed to my next school after playing at Alabama for 4 years. So just kind of figuring out where I was going to play in that whole process, and then this whole virus thing going on. So it's been a little hectic, but I'm glad I've got to come on.
Let's kind of circle back to high school. So dating back to your high school days, let's talk about that. Did you play any other sports? When did you know you were going to be really serious about football? And when did you really start taking football serious? And when did you think that you could really become a D1 athlete one day?
Yeah, so I would say, dating back to when I was a really, really young kid, I always had the dream of playing at Alabama for football. Growing up in Alabama, everyone, you're either Auburn or Alabama. There's a few other schools that people are fans of, but for college, that's mostly it. And, my grandfather was good friends with Bear Bryant, and my grandmother and grandfather met at Alabama. And then, my mom went there, aunts and uncles, all this stuff. So I was a fourth generation student. And it just meant a lot to me. That's always where I wanted to go. So growing up as a kid, that's what I had in my head, that I wanted to do. And I played baseball, soccer, basketball, football, tennis, and I think that's it. Until
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Did you run any track at all?
I did. So that's what I was about to say. So I played a bunch of sports when I was younger. Like all of them, and did travel for the most part, for most of them, if not all. But then realized, if you want to excel to an elite level at a certain sport, you're going to have to start cutting it down. So in high school, I ended out my senior year, I ran track in the winter and spring and did football in the fall.
That sounds good. Yeah, it seems like you had a really busy schedule in high school. You know, it's probably pretty difficult juggling your schoolwork and things of that nature. Because I mean, playing Division I football, you have to have the grades too. So, kind of talk about how school is very important. You know, but I assume how much did grades play a part into what kind of offers you got? Were there any other offers you had besides Alabama? You know, were you close to thinking about any other schools? You know, just talk about some of those things.
Yeah, to answer the last question, there wasn't any other place that I really wanted to go besides Alabama. I had opportunities at smaller schools,
Wow.
just different schools, everywhere, honestly. But for the grades part, I like to tell people that, I had someone ask me the other day how important is are academics for, getting an offer for college programs. I wouldn't say that I really focused just on academics. I got the idea that Saban, coached us at Alabama with the process and the fact that, like, look, if you want to be great at football, you got to be great in the classroom. That's just how it works. You know what I'm saying? There's not like an off button. If you want to be great in life, like whatever you do, you got to do everything great. And he told us a story at one of his camps that I went to when I was younger. He said, like, Martin Luther King, I think, said that if you want to be a street sweeper, you got to be the best street sweeper you can be. So it's like any little job, you want to do that to the best of your ability. And so I did that with academics. I didn't think about the fact that, like, okay, if I get good grades, I'm going to get into this school or that school. I just worked extremely hard and really took pride in my academics and athletics. But academics are definitely important. And the better grades you have, the more offers and opportunities you're going to get.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally understand that. Just really quickly, what were some of the other schools that were kind of looking at you? Just if you could share those, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I actually visited Princeton up in New
Oh, okay.
Jersey. Very cold up there. Stanford down in Birmingham. I talked to Bryant, Wagner, Southern Utah, Northern Arizona. Trying to think where else. I got mail from Miami, North Carolina State, just random schools. Really wasn't too interested in anywhere there. Like I said, I just
It was Bam. It was Bam or bust. It was Bam or bust for
yeah.
you. That was what you were, set on. I understand that. I really do. But what was Nick Saban's, pitch to you when he obviously kind of visited with you as far as you, going through the process of going to Alabama to play football? What was his pitch to you? And what is it like playing for Nick Saban? Some people think that he's kind of, a rowdy guy, can be a little mean. I don't know him personally, but I mean, that's just kind of what some people think about him. I personally think that, hey, he's a great coach. I think he's the greatest college football coach of all time. And hey, whatever he says do, I would listen. So I mean, what would you say about, playing for Nick Saban? How's that process, and what was his pitch to you?
Yeah, so I remember I visited Alabama a couple of times. I think my junior year and senior year to go to a couple of games or whatnot. And I got to visit with Saban after. I can't really think of which game it was. One of my game visits, I talked to Saban after, and the idea was like, look, we want you to come here, but I mean, if you want to go somewhere else, like, with all due respect, go somewhere else. But if you want to be the best and be the best at your position and learn a lot in the game of football, then this is the place to come. Saban was a big factor, but also Cochran had been a big factor at the time, as well as a lot of the other great coaches on their staff. I mean, it's just Alabama as a whole, and so that was kind of his pitch, I guess, in a sense you could say. And look, he comes off. I see how people definitely say or think he comes off like that, but really he's just a guy who wants the best, out of his players and out of the people around him, and he demands nothing but the best. Because when you're put up to that standard, you're gonna have to perform if you want to, compete for a spot, and that's what makes the team so great.
Well, let me dive into Nick Saban a little bit more. Was it actually like truly like really, really playing for him? Like, is he a player's coach, you would say? Is he, sort of, quiet on the side? Is he open to, being talked to, on the side? Does he come across as a pretty nice guy to you? What would you say as far as Nick Saban's overall personality? I know that he demands the best from his players, but give me some more insight on what it's actually like playing for Nick Saban once again.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from. So I'm trying to think, I wouldn't say he's the players coach in the way that most people have an idea of a players coach as someone who's just friends with the players, talking to the guys all the time like that. That's not Saban. He doesn't really associate it with us too much, like face to face all the time. He's not really going up like, "What's up, buddy? How we doing, pal?" Or making small talk. If you're talking to him, it's going to be in a meeting, and you have to make an appointment for a meeting. And so he's like, I would like to say, like a manager in a way. He doesn't necessarily associate with us all the time or anything like a lot of these coaches do, but he's a manager of the whole process and tells the position coaches how he wants us to be coached, and then they coach us. And then on the field, he's all about football and getting things done and doing things right. Like he's chewing us out. One time I had my knee pads a little bit above my knee, and I had to run a lap around
Oh, wow.
the field, and he ripped into me because of it, because it's undisciplined, is what he was saying. And it's the small things like that he would call people out for in practice, no matter if they were a star or a guy who never did anything. So I hope that gives like a little bit better of an idea. He is nice and he can listen up and he can laugh. And he can be funny, but for the most part, he's pretty serious and he wants the best for us. But he's not. Doesn't want to get all buddy with us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally understand that, So what does it take to actually, play at Alabama, in your opinion? Is there a big mindset you need to have? Because obviously, Alabama is just not any other school. They're up there with Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Auburn, you name it. They're one of the 5 best schools as far as football goes in America. And some would argue the best. They're right there with Clemson and things of that nature. So what would you, if you were, okay, let's say someone was saying, okay, I want to play football at Alabama. What should they know getting into that, as far as, if they were going to get on campus, step on Alabama's campus and play football? What would your advice be to them as far as, staying within the program and maybe, getting up the ladder as far as the program goes, as far as football?
Yeah, I would say that you need to realize, like, a lot of guys come from high school, and I had a solid high school career, but some of these guys who come to Alabama are the guy in their state. They're the number one player in their state. They're the number one player in their region. And you come in with that mindset, it's different. It's hard. But I would say if you're going to come in, you need to have the mindset that you might not play right away. You might not ever play that much, but, they're going to give you an opportunity. And you're going to become the best player you can be. If you truly want to be the best football player you can be, Alabama was the place to do it in my eyes. I mean, with the coaching and stuff like that, and just to keep grinding and pushing. You never know. I mean, there's countless examples. For example, like Kenyon Drake didn't really play much until his final season,
right?
And was getting in there and getting reps. And then what do you know? He ends up being like a starting running back for an NFL team. Josh Jacobs, one of my good friends, he was second string the year that he went to the Raiders first round.
He was a first round pick. He was a first round pick. That's crazy.
And there's tons of stories like that of guys just who really didn't play at Alabama much, or weren't the first string, but ended up having tons of success in the league, or after just in life. And so just stick it out and just invest in the process and invest in yourself, and never give up.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a great answer. So kind of talk about the schedule of a student athlete at Alabama. Obviously a big Division I school. Just talk about the life of a student athlete. What time are you usually getting up for workouts? How many days a week are you pretty much working out? Do you guys usually have a rest day, maybe a Sunday off? How many hours are you spending on the practice field during the week, in the classroom? Just kind of talk about the overall life of a student athlete and really the preparation that it takes to become great as a student athlete at a place like Alabama.
Yeah, it's super tough. A lot of people don't realize what college athletes have to do. So if it's a regular game week, we would on Monday, starting on Monday, we have a lift on Monday, and there's like different lift times depending. They'll make it around our class schedule. So if I have class from 8 to whatever, 12 or whatnot, I'm gonna lift at 6:30. And be with that group. So we'd have like an hour lift on Mondays, and we get up, do our lift, and then it's class. And we go to class. We have to go to all our classes, get our work done, and then right after that, we're eating lunch, we're changing, we're going through, hour or so of meetings, 2 hours, whatever, And then we have practice for about an hour and a half. I think it's like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, however long. And we're off the field by, we're off the field around like I think 6 o'clock, maybe a little bit later. And then it's tutoring, doing homework, or some people have late night class, and then you gotta get sleep, and then
do it all over again.
You do it all over again. And so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are like practice days. Mondays are kind of light practice. Tuesdays are pretty big long practice, same as Wednesdays. And then Thursday's a little bit easier, and then Friday we do a walkthrough. Just kind of go through the things really light, before the game, and then you go stay in the game hotel. And then Saturday is game day, and then Sunday we'll have what's called a stretch and stride, which is just where we run, I think like 110-yard dashes, kind of like a good pace, like a striding pace, just to kind of get us loose, make sure we're ready for the next week.
Is there ever a speech that Saban gave to you guys or a moment where you were at Alabama, or just on the practice field in general playing football, where you said, okay, this is the place that I want to be, and this is the place that I'm happy I ended up being in?
I would say there's a lot of times like I had like that at Alabama. I'm trying to think of one specifically for you, but hopefully this will paint the picture. I can't, think of the exact date, but it's after a fall camp. I think it was my sophomore, junior year. It was my sophomore year. So I believe that's the summer of 2017.
Yep.
But it was hot as heck out there, like 90-something degrees, high 80s, 90 degrees. And we just had a long fall camp practice. And, it was the fact about when we took a knee and everyone's eyes were focused on Saban, I was surrounded by a group of guys who was just gone through this whole practice in this hot weather, and we're just survived. You know what I mean? Like, we all look dead, and Saban's telling us to stand up high, that there's things we need to get better on and get your rest. But, like, the idea of having all those guys around me and looking around and seeing the faces of my teammates, just being like, we did it. We made it through this practice. Yet we have, like, more to go. And then going right to the cold tubs where everybody's laughing and stuff. Like, there's the fact that we could work so hard and be so exhausted. And there's plenty of times that happen like that where you're just like, gosh, like, great group of guys and stuff like that.
Got it. So as far as playing in the SEC, obviously you go up against schools like Florida, Auburn, UGA. What's preparation like for those types of teams? How much film are you actually watching? A lot of people talk about the practice, the weightlifting. How much film do you guys actually watch to prepare for these teams? And what's the atmosphere like on the road, at South Carolina or facing Georgia in the SEC title game, stuff like that, What's just SEC football all about, man? Is it everything that's advertised on television? Because I've never been to an SEC game live. I've been to a couple Big Ten games live. I live in Ohio, so I've been to a couple Ohio State games. Pretty good atmosphere. But yeah, so just kind of talk about those things.
Yeah, so preparation is wild, especially at a school like Alabama. Going back to the coach Saban he's all about preparation. You cannot be prepared enough. So we go through that schedule I mentioned earlier, but we're watching, we're going like 20 minutes of special teams a day on this team. We're going through 15 to 20 minutes as an offensive unit, and then we're going to individual 45 minutes to an hour, and that's all every single day. And so we're doing that much film, and that's just at practice. When we're by ourselves on dorm, going to sleep, guys are watching film like crazy. Jerry Jeudy was, a film addict. He's a great player, and that's what made him great is the ability to just, get his stuff done, but focus on doing stuff that wasn't required, but we did it because we wanted to be prepared for these teams. And I would say, like, preparing for a big SEC team would be harder, but the way Saban did it, I would think sometimes we were playing, a team like Citadel, who didn't seem to be as, high ranked as some of the teams we were playing. But I felt like our practice week was even harder than, the one against LSU or another team, And so
Saban doesn't want his team to be embarrassed or anything.
Yeah. Every week we prepared to the same standard, I guess you could say. We always wanted to prepare and it was a ton of preparation. SEC football is definitely, I can't speak for the other teams, but Alabama, I mean, it is a system. It's a process. So we're working every week.
What's the atmosphere like on campus for game days and just overall the Alabama fans on campus? What's it like at a home game for Alabama? How crazy are the fans? Just talk about that type of stuff.
Yeah, a cool. I mean, from a fan perspective, when I was younger, it's wild the way that there's tailgating everywhere. There's a thing called the Quad, which is a massive area of grass around our famous Denny Chimes, which is a big clock tower, and that is covered in tents of people tailgating, whether they're playing cornhole, have TVs up everywhere, and then people just flood the streets. Now, as a player, it was incredible as well. We get to the stadium, we're getting ready, everyone's kind of nervous, and you go out there we had the first little warm up, we had a pre warm up where you're just throwing the ball around and start to see people kind of come in, and then we go to the warm up, and then there's nothing like running out of the tunnel. We play Thunderstruck, and everybody's starting to get locked in. Coach Saban just gave us a great pregame speech, and then we come out of that tunnel, and there's nothing like Bride Diddy. Especially at a night game like LSU, we have those new lights, and they're going crazy. It's loud as can be. The fans are going nuts. I mean, it is an awesome experience.
Really quickly to talk about that again, what are the parties like after the games? Do you usually hit up some parties after games?
It depends on who you ask. A lot of guys, we don't really ever go out during the week. So sometimes we'll
understandable.
Go to, a teammate's house, and we'll just kind of hang out and maybe invite a couple of people over. Some people go to the bars. There's not really a set spot. And a lot of us are pretty exhausted from the week. So unfortunately, some people just go straight to sleep after the game. But, there's students who, aren't on the team, and it's a rowdy, good time after the games.
As far as the actual game experiences at Alabama in 2016, you were there when you guys played Clemson in the national title game, right?
Yes.
So what was it actually like playing in the college football playoffs for one? I think that year you guys faced Washington. You beat them. Then you faced Clemson in the national title game. I believe that was in Arizona, wasn't it not?
It was in Tampa, I believe.
Okay, Tampa. Either way, we get it.
All
right.
Yeah.
What was the experience of being in the national title game, that atmosphere? Obviously, you were on the roster of 2 national title games. Actually, 3. Yeah, 3. The one versus Clemson where you guys lost on the last second play to Deshaun Watson. Then, obviously, playing versus Georgia, the overtime win where Tua comes in, relief for Jalen Hurts, has the late game heroics. You guys win in overtime. And then, you face Clemson again and you see Trevor Lawrence, and kind of wasn't the best day for Bama football, I would say. But either way, what's just the overall experience of playing in a national title game? What's the atmosphere like? Is the preparation even more detailed? I know you talked about how detailed the preparation is during the week for just even the Citadel. I mean, I imagine the Saban is even more detailed for facing someone like Clemson or Georgia or things of that nature. So kind of talk about that experience overall.
Yeah, I would say the playoff experience is pretty awesome. We get there, like you said, the first year we played Washington. We were in Atlanta. And the committee just did a great job. We had a whole almost week there, I think. And we were eating it. We did a lot of team stuff. We would have we were having a competition basically off the field with, Washington. They came into a 3-point challenge, and we had guys compete in that. They always do a players lounge in the hotel we stay in that has, everything you can think of: PlayStation, Xbox, basketball shooting machines, everything you dreamed, which is a lot of fun. And they do a great job. We're chauffeured everywhere, fans are everywhere. There's a ton of hype. So leading up to it, it's pretty crazy and awesome that way. And then, like I said, preparation wise, most people might say that someone prepares more for this event than another, but just the way Coach Saban is, we prepare the same for every single game, no matter who we play. So preparation was the same, and we had curfew very early. We're going to sleep by 11 o'clock every night, getting ready, and practicing hard, and going from thing to thing. And on field, it's pretty unbelievable. I would say that there was nothing like, especially that national championship against Georgia, where Tua threw the game-winning touchdown. It was a pretty surreal experience.
That was in Atlanta, right? That was in Atlanta,
yes,
right?
It was.
So you guys were pretty much, kind of, I probably was like 50-50. I assume Bama fans travel pretty well, right?
Yeah, they do. I think that we've actually probably moved to having a little bit less of fans sometimes. In those big games, like I say less. We still have a ton of fans. We have an unbelievable fan base, but in the way that people expect us to make it there, and so when we go out, when we're in Arizona or something like that, or far out in California, it's harder for fans to get out there. There are less fans than the other team, but in a place like Atlanta, we were a pretty packed house.
No doubt. So I'm going to switch back to 2016. Obviously, you guys lost on the last second play to Clemson in that national title game. Then you guys, run through your schedule. Then you face Auburn, and that game didn't go so well on the road. And you guys were fortunate enough to get into the playoffs as a 4 seed over Ohio State. I felt that you guys should have made the playoffs. I'd argue that Ohio State just losing to Iowa by a bunch of points and Oklahoma by a bunch of points was, what can you say? Alabama, I got to put them in. But either way, you guys won the national title game the year after you lost on the last second play. Was there something different that you saw the minute you guys started, training, the next year once practices started back up? Was there a different mentality or a different intensity from the team you saw that said, okay, we got to the national title game, that was nice, but we're not going to lose like that again? So, was there anything different you saw mentally, physically from the 2017 national title team versus the 2016 team? I know you guys reload every year, so there's some different players, different faces every year, but what was different from that team that put you guys over the hump?
Yeah, we came in with a narrative that year. So, in fall camp, we always discuss, we like to have a narrative of who we're going to be. And that year, we were going to, Bama's coming back. Like, we're not done yet, and we came in with that mentality that happened, and it shouldn't have happened. But we weren't prepared or whatever, and we had a chip on our shoulder. And everybody was working, and we could always go back to that moment to drive us. It posted pictures of it everywhere in the locker room. In the weight room, there's pictures of the score. Cochran had that thing everywhere. Was sending texts around.
Would not let you guys forget.
Yeah, they would not let us forget, and so it was awesome because it gave us something, gave something for us to be driven by. So I'd say the mentality was pretty great. We came in angry, and really, wanted to be great and wanted to claim our spot back on top, and we were going to make it clear that we're the best team in the country. That's kind of the attitude we came in with.
No doubt. I want to talk about the quarterbacks that you guys have on your team. Obviously, Tua gets drafted number 5 overall to the Dolphins. Jalen Hurts goes in the second round to the Philadelphia Eagles. He obviously transferred away. He went to Oklahoma for a year. But again, you were in the locker room with them. You were on the practice field with both of them. What's the difference between Tua and Jalen Hurts? Are they both very similar in the way they lead? How are they off the field, on the field? Obviously, Tua, a little bit more talented. He went higher in the draft. Jalen Hurts, maybe not as talented, but again, a lot of people speak about his leadership, just the way he inspires his teammates, his work ethic. I do believe that one day he can develop into a starting quarterback. He's obviously going to have a tough task, being out Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, pretty darn good quarterback there in Philadelphia. But, just talk about what's it like playing with a guy like Tua and Jalen Hurts? Because you are a wide receiver, so what's it like catching passes from those guys, and what are they like?
Yeah, so I'll start with Jalen just because I came in my freshman year. He was an early enrollee, and we developed a relationship because we had our public speaking class together. We would go eat pancakes at IHOP. He loves some strawberry pancakes, but we would talk and stuff. And he doesn't say he's quiet. He's a quiet person, and he's very humble. And he had the attitude. I remember us talking, saying, back I want to come in here. I want to lead this team, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to learn as much as I can. And he was just grinding, whether it be going over plays in his apartment, or just going on his schoolwork. He was always working, and he wasn't getting into any trouble. He kept quiet and was just a grinder. And throughout the years, that's what he continued to do, and just was a really great. I mean, like you said, you've heard about it. He's an unbelievable leader, and it can really do some great things, and build a group or a team around him. As a quarterback, he was very good too. He can really make some great passes. Some people say that his ability to pass isn't as good as others, but I think it was pretty dang good, and he was mobile. And I don't know if there's a better runner. He was like a running back there. And when we went into that fall camp, I was actually running with the twos the year after we played Georgia, and Jalen and Tua were switching out. Ones and twos. And every time I would be with Jalen, he would, I would ask him after we came off the field after a series. I'd be like, man, what can I do differently? What do you want to do there? And he was always willing to coach me up and help me understand what he was doing, what he wanted me to do in a certain situation. And so I think he will kill it in the league. Someone that anyone would want on their team. Great, person, humble, and extremely talented. And then, you go to Tua. I would say they're similar in the way that they both are kind of quiet, but at the same time, Tua can open up a little bit and he can joke around a little bit, and he's got an unbelievable arm. He'll wait back in that pocket and wait for an opportunity to make a play, which a lot of quarterbacks will kind of run. When the pocket breaks, he will literally wait until the last second to make a play. Thinking about like Georgia, he literally looked at the other side of the field so that corner on the other side would come down, and then he hit Devontae Smith. Like he was so smart.
Very good IQ.
Yeah, and the ability to handle pressure like he did was awesome. And like I said, I think he'll do really well too. His leadership style is a little bit different than Jalen's. I'd say he's a little bit less vocal, but he was, still an unbelievable leader. And both of them similar in the way that just like they can handle pressure better than any quarterbacks. Most quarterbacks I know, and both were great guys.
Yeah, so obviously Tua, he goes to Miami. I think that's a great situation for him. He's not got to play right away. They got a good veteran quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick that's going to be able to start games if Tua, so Tua can get healthy. Obviously had the serious hip injury. God bless his heart, things of that nature. But let's kind of talk about Tua as far as, comparing him to some of these other quarterbacks that have come out. Obviously, you guys got a pretty good live look of Joe Burrow. Last year, actually, when Joe Burrow was not the same quarterback, you guys you stopped LSU pretty bad down in Baton Rouge, I would say. But then, Joe Burrow comes back this next year, and he's a different quarterback, man. And then, obviously, you guys faced Trevor Lawrence, not this year, but last year. He's a pretty good quarterback. A lot of people are talking about him as a potential number one overall pick. Obviously, Justin Herbert came out this year. Pretty talented guy out of Oregon, big-time arm. How do you think Tua stacks up against these quarterbacks, and do you really see him having some success in the NFL? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that he and Joe are head-to-head and the best quarterback in the class, in the sense that it's hard to judge or rate them, those two, because they're both extremely talented, but their play style is different. Joe did such a good job against us this year. He sits back in the pocket. He's strong. He's big. But his ability to run is not like Tua's. And Tua's ability to extend plays, whether it be, a run, passing on the run, etc., is an incredible thing. I would say that they're just different. And their differences, each of them have their own style of play that make them so great. They're clearly, in my opinion, the best in the NFL draft this year. And I think that you'll see Tua is really successful in the NFL. He's going to bring along the things he had at Alabama, but you're going to give him, a group of NFL players around him, and he's going to learn even more. I mean, sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that he's a franchise quarterback. I think that he's highly accurate, very smart. One thing I will say, though, is do you think that he's going to be able to handle adversity? I think that you are a guy that can speak for this. I mean, he got hurt pretty badly, I believe, versus Ole Miss. Was it Ole Miss? Yeah, the Ole Miss game. He injured his hip. Obviously, he was banged up a lot last year, had some ankle injuries. You saw Tua at practice, when he was hurt, was he still going through the team drills, the team meetings and whatnot? How was Tua, helping the other guys in the locker room and things of that nature? And do you think that the injuries are a concern, or do you think that he can overcome those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with anyone, injuries could be a concern. And, in his case, he might be more prone in some people's eyes I don't really know. He just probably was put in some bad situations, and he's so versatile. Trying to extend plays, but some things just happen. But he could definitely handle it. He was in every team meeting after it happened. He was strolling around a little like, scooter type thing, but he was coming to the meetings, when he didn't necessarily have to. He was rehabbing every day and every night, trying to prepare, to get back to normal. And when he was on the sidelines, for the games, he was an incredible teammate, just always hyping up his other players, cheering on Mac. Something special. But Jalen did that very well when Tua had the starting spot in the national championship. But yeah, so Tua can definitely overcome injuries, and adversity is a thing that's easy for him to handle. Wouldn't say easy, but he can handle it. He's a really strong, faithful person, and that is something that'll take him a long way.
Really quickly, I want to touch on some of the draft picks that came out of Alabama this year. Obviously, we talked about Tua, but Jedrick Wills, one of the best offensive linemen in the draft. I felt that he was the best offensive lineman in the draft. He goes to Cleveland. Henry Ruggs, that guy has great speed. Very good wide receiver. He was actually the number one wide receiver off the board. He goes to the Raiders. Jerry Jeudy goes to the Broncos to play with Drew Lock. And then, obviously, you got Xavier McKinney. Trevon Diggs goes to Dallas. Raquan Davis. Terrell Lewis. Efrony Jennings, I believe, got drafted as well. Kind of talk about some of those guys and where they like in the locker room and things of that nature. And do you think that they can be very successful in the NFL?
Yeah, I think every single one of the guys. There's also Jared Baden and Shaheem Carter, who both went undrafted but signed with teams. And the whole group as a whole, they graduated this year, or not graduated, but went to the NFL, whether it be drafted or signed, is an outstanding group of guys. Tons of character within that group. And, some of them had streaky college careers, but I believe as a whole, they're going to have tremendous success. You talk about Xavier McKinney, he's a perfect person for the Giants program. He's so versatile. He can play any position if needed.
Since the Joe Judge mold.
Coachable. Yeah, he's a great guy. And like Shaheem Carter, went undrafted as a free agent to the 49ers. He's a steal, in my opinion. He's a guy who is a little undersized, but is always in the right spot. He's a genius when it comes to football and, just IQ on the field. And then Terrell Lewis is is massive, and the NFL team is going to be fun for him to get out there and compete with these guys and learn from NFL players and really, show them what he's got. You got Raekwon, is just massive, a ton of character in the locker room, goofy, but also can be just a killer on the field. Diggs,
I thought Diggs was a steal. I thought he was like a first rounder.
Yeah, he was a big steal. I think because of his inconsistency in some games this year, some teams were a little bit hesitant. But if you look at him as a whole, he's got the size, the speed, genetics, everything you would need. And I think you put that in the NFL. There's something I could say about every single one of the guys. I just would like to say that as a whole, that most of them, if not all of them, are going to be successful in the league.
So you played wide receiver at Alabama a little bit. Kind of talk about some of the guys that you've seen, come from Alabama that have got drafted. Obviously, Calvin Ridley got drafted a couple years ago. I'm just going to throw in some tight ends, some pass catchers, I guess. We could talk about Irv Smith, O.J. Howard. They have great speed. We talked about Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. You talked about Judy's, preparation. And then you got guys like Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle who didn't even come out this year. I think that they're probably going to be first-round picks. Out of all the Alabama pass catchers or wide receivers or tight ends that you've had a chance to look at, which one kind of stood out to you the most as far as their work ethic, their habits, their character, just making plays on the field, what are they like in the locker room? Just what's one guy that you stood out and said, okay, that you singled out, I should say, and said, okay, that guy's a little bit different?
Yeah, it's a tough question because, most
putting you on the spot.
There would be a guy who's definitely like that. But in Alabama, it's just tough because every single guy has outstanding athletic ability when you're playing at the top notch like that. I don't want to pick one because that's kind of too hard, like just thinking about it. But I'll talk about a cool, Calvin Ridley and Jerry Jeudy, in my mind, are pretty similar play style. And it was cool because they were very good friends, and Judy was always trying to mimic Calvin. Whatever Calvin was doing, Judy was trying to do the same thing. And they both worked their tails off and just kind of have that quick and just mobile, ability. I would say Jerry, I guess, stood out in one way through the whole group because of the fact that I've told someone he's kind of like a Michael Jordan in a sense in the sport of football, where he catches the ball, you don't know what he's going to do, and it's not saying he might juke, he might step on you. You don't know what the guy's going to do. He might create a move that you've never seen before. And I think that's what made him stand out the most to me, is that he was able to literally slow down the game and come up with moves that other people are probably going to mimic for years to come.
Sounds good. Sounds good. As far as defense goes, Alabama's had some good defensive backs come out. We talked about Trevon Diggs a little bit. What's a defensive back that you maybe faced in practice that you said, man, this guy is really good and he might be flying under the radar? Someone that is it someone that's at Alabama right now? Who's a defensive back at Bama that really stood out to you?
If we're talking about over my whole career,
we can go that route.
Yeah, if we're talking about my whole career, like you said, I've been able to go against some of the best. I would say the guy that stood out to me the most, though, was Minkah Fitzpatrick. He was at the Dolphins, got traded to the Steelers. There's countless times where I can remember after practice he would grab me. 1 week going into Clemson week, he said, "Mac, you stay after practice," and I'm like, "Dude, we've been practicing every day. You have to be ready for the game. You have to be fresh." I didn't say this to him, but in my head, I'm thinking this. I'm like, "You think you're crazy? You just have this practice, and you're about to have to go do this or that. But you want to get in more." And he's like, "Dude, you got me on that. Whatever you're doing on that route." And he's like, "I want to learn that." So we would do it over and over again. No one else out there on the practice field, and he would get me to practice it with him. And I was sitting there, and I'm not a star or anything like he is. But the fact that he wanted to stay after practice and work like that, and just seeing him have a good relationship with Coach Saban, and being at the right place at the right time in the locker room, just a really faithful guy, who's always setting a good example for others and leading with, the way he does things. He stuck out to me. He's a very, very impressive person, and, shows why he's very successful.
Who would you say is the funniest teammate that you've come across? Is it Quinnen Williams? I'm gonna take a guess. Is it Quinnen?
Ooh, that's tough. There's a couple of them up there. Q is definitely one of the funnier ones. You got Christian Barmore, who's still there, who's just hysterical. Brandon Turnage is hilarious. Phil Mathis. Deontay Brown. There's a lot of character in that locker room. There's not one in particular I could say is funnier than the others, but there's a lot of guys who are pretty humorous in the locker room.
Is it fair to say that Henry Ruggs is the fastest player that you've seen at Alabama? There's been a lot of fast players, but I think that he's different. Is he the fastest?
Yes, I would say so. I would say if anyone could compete with him, it'd be Waddle or Tony Brown. I would have loved to see Tony go against him just because Tony ran track and was so successful in track. But Tony Brown is pretty dang quick. But I've seen Ruggs and Waddle race, and it's so much fun to watch. Ruggs wins, but it's a super close race. And yeah, Ruggs is probably the fastest guy I've ever played with.
Got it. Now I'm gonna kind of transition to the school that you're gonna be going to next, which is Vanderbilt. But really quickly, do you still believe that Alabama is the premium program in college football? Obviously, Clemson has knocked Alabama off the last couple of years. Georgia's up there, Ohio State's up there. What would you say to people that think that Alabama has fallen off and that they're maybe not the best program anymore? Do you still believe Alabama is the cream crop of college football?
Yes, I would say that Alabama is the standard of college football, of excellence in college football. And it's not just because of, you look at it long term, the amount of national championships, just the amount of NFL players that come out of there, everything. I would say that Alabama is still, the standard of college football. And it's a tribute not just to the guys on the field, but the staff they have there, Coach Saban, and just like every little person working underneath them, whether it's a nutritionist or a chef every person in that building is the best at what they do in a sense. And so I still think, yeah, they're up there for sure.
As far as really quickly, the university itself, what did the university do for you? What did you actually study at Alabama?
Yeah, so I studied for the most of my time. I was in the communication school and studied public relations. But for the last semester, transferred over to interdisciplinary studies just so I'd be able to graduate early in December. And the school as a whole is an incredible place. So many great people. Teachers overexceeded my expectations. They had teachers in there that really cared about their students. Wanted their students to really learn and be successful. And it was just a family, and it's a great family atmosphere. And I'll always, have a place for my Alabama in my heart. Just love that school.
No doubt, man. All right, we've been talking for a long time, but we got to get to Vanderbilt a little bit. Okay. So as far as Vanderbilt, you obviously played at Alabama. Now you're going to be going to Vanderbilt, another SEC school. You obviously graduated from Alabama, but you're pursuing your master's degree at Vanderbilt. What are you studying at Vanderbilt, and why are you choosing Vanderbilt as the school to play out your final year of eligibility for football?
Yeah, so I'm getting my master's in the marketing program. They have a program called the Masters of Marketing. And a couple of reasons, first of all, my mom went to Vanderbilt for grad school. My dad went there for law school. And it's just always been known as such a prestigious school, and still is one of the most prestigious schools in the nation academically. So that definitely stood out to me. But they were also one of the first teams that reached out to me, if not the first, who reached out to me when I entered the portal. And I just, developed a really great relationship with everyone on their staff. And I love Coach Mason. I think that they're on to something at Vanderbilt with the football program. They're, really amping things up. Things are really going to turn around. And there's just a lot of great people in there. So those are definitely a lot of the reasons why I chose Vanderbilt.
I assume you visited there, right? Was the visit great? What's the atmosphere like? The campus life?
Yeah, I did. I visited right after, kind of pretty recently after season.
Okay.
And I had a great time. I loved meeting all their staff, just a bunch of energetic guys, and coaches that really seem to care about their players as individuals, and, just great people overall. And then I had a ton of fun in Nashville, and Nashville's just an unbelievable city. So I'm looking forward to being there.
Are you in a good relationship with any of the players down there? Have any players reached out to you? Do you know any of the players that are actually there? Were there any good relationships that you built from, being across from them from Alabama, I would say?
A lot of guys. I was actually shocked when I committed. A lot of guys reached out on Vanderbilt's team. Just shows why, or attributes to the family kind of vibe that I got when I went there. A lot of them reached out, said they can't wait for me to be there, excited to get some work in. I haven't, I'd say there's a guy named J.R. Tranrino from Birmingham. I have developed a little bit of a relationship, getting a chance to throw with and stuff like that. He's a younger guy. But besides that, there's guys I know and I've met, but it seems pretty awesome. They all seem like really stand-up guys.
Sounds good. So obviously Vanderbilt went 3-9 last year. I assume you probably got a chance to maybe watch a couple of their games. Obviously, you probably maybe dove into it after the season. What do you think is going to take to, potentially turn around Vanderbilt? You obviously talked about, you think that the coaches are ramping things up there a little bit. What do you think that Vanderbilt needs to do to maybe potentially get better next season? Or what do you think you're going to bring to Vanderbilt's program overall as a wide receiver? Are you playing wide receiver there still?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I think as a wide receiver and just a player, I'll bring some experience from the Alabama side where, that I learned, whether it be, lessons from Coach Saban, just different techniques I've learned.
You're coming from the best.
Wide receiver coaches, yeah. A great college football program, so I'll be able to bring a lot of that. And I'm just excited to work with this group and really see where things go and let them, make me better as well. And I think it's just tough. They're a program that you have to have good grades and you have to do well in school to get into Vanderbilt. So that puts them, at a little harder place when recruiting. But I think it's just going to take time. Coach Mason, like I said, seems like a great guy. He's an awesome coach. I'd love to get to meet him, and I think that things will start to turn around soon. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
So looking at Vandy's schedule next year, obviously they play at A&M, at Georgia, at Mizzou, at Kansas State. So that's a out of conference game in the Big 12. Then the home games, you play Florida, who's going to be bringing a lot of talent back this year. You got a home game versus South Carolina and a home game versus Tennessee. That's not all the games, but some of the big games I think that probably will be highlighted. I mean, every game's important, but what team do you think are you most excited to face at Vanderbilt next year, as far as the teams that they have on their schedule?
Um, right off the top of my head, maybe Georgia. Just because the fact that I have a buddy who plays linebacker there, Monty Rice, and just getting to compete against him and be able to deal with him is pretty cool to think about. And like Florida, I mean, all of them really. I know you want like one team in particular, but
no, you're giving great answers, man.
Just for the whole experience, and all the teams are going to play. I'm just pumped for each game.
Yeah, and speaking of Georgia, I just want to circle back to your Alabama days a little bit really quickly. You faced Georgia twice, twice in your time at Alabama. One time in the SEC title game, and then the other time in the national title game. Obviously Jalen Hurts was the savior in the SEC title game, and Tua was the savior in the national championship game. What do you think you guys did to prepare so well for Georgia, and what allowed you guys to beat that team? I mean, they gave you. I mean, I watched from the start of both games. Those were great games. A lot of great NFL players on each side. I mean, Georgia probably played you guys the toughest out of any team outside of Clemson. I mean, what makes Georgia so good, and what were you guys able to do to beat that team?
Yeah, I think Georgia, what makes them good is Kirby Smart has taken a lot of things he's learned from Coach Saban. And just put them in place in Georgia, which is also, a powerful program. So when you bring a bunch of powerful and great knowledge to another program, it's just going to work like that. They've been able to recruit well, and perform. But what does it take to beat them? It's just the same thing we do for every other team. The way Saban had done it, we just prepared, as much as possible. We know everything about them, every kick they can do, we try to figure out every possibility of every situation. So there's more things we can control, because the more controllables, then, the more it's going to be in our hands. And that's what we did. And when it comes down to it, we were able to win.
Yeah, no doubt. Those were great games. I had a lot of fun watching Bama versus Georgia the last couple of years. I pretty much talked about everything I want to know about Vanderbilt, Bama, things of that nature. I understand that you kind of work out a little bit with Duck Hodges, the Steelers backup quarterback. Kind of talk about your relationship with him.
Yeah, so when I graduated, I came back home, looking for a quarterback to throw with, and I threw a little bit with Alex Cornybrook, who just graduated from Florida State, played at Wisconsin before that. He was a very talented QB, and then through some connections, met Devlin Hodges, Duck Hodges, a lot of people call him.
Yep.
And, we both were grinders. We wanted to be working all the time, wherever it be, and that's kind of what happened. We just met and started throwing, 3 to 4 times a week, every week, and just developed a really good relationship. And he's helped me understand things from, he's been able to play at that elite level. So he's kind of helped me with different things, or told me how different things are, and just been accessible as possible. And us two have just been working, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. It's probably pretty fun to work out with a pro quarterback. I know he's not a starter right now, but backup. Hey, he's an NFL quarterback. That's probably pretty fun, I would assume. You were in the communications program at Alabama a little bit. Is that kind of how you got in? Is that kind of how you met Maria Taylor a little bit?
Yeah. So the playoffs I've been doing for the media stuff. AL.com, which is centered in Birmingham, is a great media group that covers just tons of football players and stuff down here. I met someone there my freshman year, and my sophomore year, they asked me if I want to do this thing, kind of interview some players, just kind of relationship with the guys. I was comfortable to do that. Started doing that, and then we had the idea maybe I should interview Maria Taylor, and then did that. Interviewed her, and after we talked to her for a good bit, and just kind of went on from there. It was she's a pretty awesome person, great mentor in life, and with sports stuff. So kept a relationship, and she's been really helpful to any needs I might have with, what my decision is to play football or anything like that.
So, past football life, once you're, potentially done with football, what do you see yourself doing? You obviously studied communications in college. I forget what else you told me you were studying. It's slipping my mind right now. You're studying something else at Vanderbilt. Marketing, yes, marketing. So, what are you kind of trying to get into, past college football life? What's life for Mac Hereford after Vanderbilt football?
Yeah, I don't really, to tell you the truth, I don't completely know, and I'm okay with that. I think that it's definitely going to be something in sports, whether it be agency, marketing, doing some nonprofit work. I really don't know completely, but I think I'll figure that out over the year. I just like to kind of, be present in the idea that I'm just going to enjoy this football season and see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I wouldn't force anything. I would say just keep exploring and seeing what you like. I mean, you don't have to be set on anything right now, I would say. But
Sure.
yeah, so really quickly, who do you think are the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL right now? If you had to give a guess, and who's your NFL team?
Gosh, receivers. That's a
Putting
really
you on the
tough
spot,
one
man.
for me. Julio's up there for sure.
Okay.
Julio Jones. Um, hmm.
Got Mike Thomas in New Orleans, DeAndre Hopkins maybe?
Yeah, I would say DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Thomas. Who else would I throw in there?
Tyreek Hill, maybe Devontae Adams?
Tyreek's got the speed. Devontae Adams sounds pretty good. Yeah, I guess that'll be it. I don't watch NFL as much as I should.
Okay.
So I don't have a good gauge on everybody like I should or anything. So not prepared enough to choose a top 5, but I just know that Julio Jones being it, he's a receiver that I think is pretty unbelievable at that level.
The Bama wide receiver. I'm just kidding. He's really good. I think that he's still the best wide receiver in football even today.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And then for NFL team, I really don't have a team. I just enjoy watching my former teammates, do their thing in the league.
No doubt. Now, really quickly, were you able to meet Julio Jones at all? He went to Alabama once. Has he come back to campus? Have you been able to meet with him? Are there some former Alabama players that have come back to campus that you built a good relationship with at all?
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily too many old guys have come back that I've really made a great relationship with or anything. Julio's come back, and I've said hey to him. But besides that, it's just really the guys who I've played with, and then Terrell Owens has come back a lot. Didn't play at Alabama, but he's trained a lot at Alabama in the weight room, and with some of our wide receivers and quarterbacks, it's just kind of cool seeing him around. So just there's some other players that I've been able to meet, but no one really in particular.
Got it. Was there anyone that gave you maybe a speech that Saban brought in from Alabama? I think that he sometimes brings in guests to speak. Is that true?
Yes, he does. He brings in we have speakers almost every night at fall camp before each season. And we had some just unbelievable speakers.
No, does there anyone that comes to your mind that was really impactful to you?
Yeah, everyone talks, or I'm pretty sure you've heard of probably Inky Johnson. We had Inky Johnson come speak. We've had guys from the military. We had David Goggins, which was pretty awesome. We had a guy named Dr. Elko who would come in a good bit. Dr. Brett McCabe, he's a mental doctor down here in Alabama and helps with coaching on the mental side of things for big time pro athletes. There's a lot of them. It's so hard when you're a place like Alabama to choose things like that because there's too many great speakers that we've had.
You've been through it all, though. You've been through it all. I mean, that's pretty much all I really have. I mean, we're gonna kind of wrap this thing up right here. The last thing that I want to, maybe ask you is, for people that are aspiring to play college football at a program like Alabama, what would you tell them as far as, their preparation in high school? What would you tell them as far as the recruiting process goes? What's your last final say to someone that will be wanting to play at Alabama that maybe is not the biggest, star recruit? Maybe they're not a 5-star or a 4-star. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say that it sounds cheesy, but literally if you want something bad enough, you can get it. So I would tell them, look, if you want to play at Alabama, if you truly want to play there, there's nothing stopping you. You know, like you need to be if you really want that to happen, all these other things will come into place. You know, you'll be working out as hard as you have to get there. You'll be practicing your skill as hard as you do to get there. You'll be doing all these things right to get to that level. And there's nothing holding you back. You know, whether it be if you have access to equipment, it doesn't matter. You can do body workouts. Like there's things you can do wherever you are. And I think anyone really can truly make it if they want to bad enough.
No doubt, man. I tend to agree, even though I don't play at Alabama. But either way, man, I appreciate you for coming on the show, man. You are the official first interview on the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. The first guy that I interviewed, Matt Hereford, former Alabama wide receiver, now is going to play at Vanderbilt, finish his final year of eligibility there. Hey, man, I really appreciate you, coming on this show. You didn't have to do this. You were a great interview. We talked for about an hour, so, I mean, it's a lot of good stuff. I think that the viewers will really enjoy your perspective on college football, what you had to say and things of that nature. And I just appreciate you for coming on here, man. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to see what you do in the next couple of years. I'm glad to have been the first guest. It's exciting to hear, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Good luck at Vanderbilt, man. I hope you do well, and I hope you have fun your last final year of college football. I was potentially looking to play college baseball. I just decided that I wanted to go more into broadcasting and media. I actually started this podcast, instead of, pursuing that. So, I mean, I'm going into broadcasting and media work. So, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. Hopefully you find the right medium and what you want to do down the road. And like I said, just thank you for coming on here, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. You have a great one.
All right, thanks, man. You too. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.